All right, so get ready because today we are taking a deep dive into human connection, how to build those really strong relationships.
Building relationships, yeah.
Exactly. And you guys sent in some super fascinating stuff to help us out, including parts of this book called How to Make People Like You. It's got like 19 science-based methods.
Oh, wow, 19.
19, I know, right?
Okay.
And some of the stuff in here is like mind-blowing, really counterintuitive.
Yeah, I bet. Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so get this. The book says that one of the best ways to really make an impression on someone is to ask them for a favor.
Ask for a favor. Really?
Isn't
That seems a little backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be doing them a favor?
You'd think so, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But apparently there's some serious psychology behind it.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I mean, human psychology is so interesting.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Ben Franklin effect?
The Ben Franklin effect.
Oh.
Refresh my memory.
Okay, so basically it says that when you ask someone for a favor, it can actually make them like you more.
What? Seriously?
Seriously.
How does that even work?
Okay, so it all comes down to this thing called cognitive dissonance.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so when we do something nice for someone,
Right.
our brains kind of have to justify why we did it.
Okay.
So let's say, you ask me for a favor and I say, sure, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
My brain's going to start going, well, hold on. If I'm doing this favor for them, I must actually like them, right?
Oh, interesting. So it's like we're tricking ourselves into liking the person more because we did them a favor.
Kind of. It's like our brain can't handle the conflict of...
The dissonance.
The dissonance, yes, thank
Yeah.
you. So it has to find a way to make it all make sense.
That's a fascinating little quirk of human psychology.
I know, right? So, I'm definitely going to try this out.
Yeah, me too.
But before we go around asking everyone for favors, let's maybe take a step back
Okay.
and talk about first impressions.
All right, first impressions, important stuff.
Huge.
Yeah.
We all know that, a smile is good.
Sure, a smile's great.
Right.
Yeah.
But this book actually goes into the why behind it. Why is smiling so powerful?
I would love to hear this.
Yeah. So it turns out smiling isn't just, a polite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It actually triggers this, automatic mimicry response in other people.
Automatic mimicry,
Right.
we copy the smile.
Yeah. We're basically wired to mirror the expressions we see,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
So it creates this instant connection.
Exactly. It's like this instant bond.
Wow.
So I was thinking maybe it's even an evolutionary thing.
An evolutionary thing.
Way back in the day, a smile meant, hey, I'm not going to attack you.
Right, I come in peace.
Exactly. It was a signal of non-aggression, which would have been super important for our, early ancestors.
Right, for survival and all that.
And apparently that instinct is still deeply ingrained in us.
Really? So it's still there?
Still there.
Even all these years later?
So when someone smiles at us, our brain is okay, this person's safe. They're trustworthy.
Oh, wow.
It just makes us feel more comfortable.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
More open to actually interacting with them.
I never thought about it like that. It's amazing.
I know.
How these little things
I know.
have such a profound impact,
It's wild.
It's really wild.
Okay, so let's say you've, mastered the art of the smile.
Okay.
You're ready to, make a good first impression. But then there's the whole, actually approaching someone.
Uh-huh.
Which can be terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of rejection.
I hate that feeling.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
So what does the book say about overcoming that?
Well, it highlights this study. They did it on elementary school children.
Okay.
And they found that even at that young age, initiating, starting the engagement, was one of the most important skills for making friends.
Really?
Yeah.
So even back then?
Even back then.
Interesting.
And it makes sense, right? Because someone has to make the first move.
Right.
You can't just...
stand there awkwardly.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's so scary, putting yourself out there.
It is. It's totally vulnerability hangover from,
Caveman days.
Caveman days. Exactly.
But the book makes this really interesting point.
Okay.
It says that when you take that first step, you're actually reducing the risk for the other person.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Because you're signaling that you're open and friendly.
Open and friendly.
Yeah, so they feel more comfortable approaching you too.
Oh, so it's you're giving them permission to be open and friendly back.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
And the book even goes as far as to say that you should, maybe even try initiating with, like a small, genuine compliment.
A compliment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, it plays on that natural inclination towards reciprocity.
Reciprocity, yeah.
Yeah.
Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly. So if you give someone like a little boost of positivity, they're more likely to want to like return the favor.
Oh, so it kind of kickstarts the connection.
It really kickstarted, yeah.
That's a great tip.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so you've made that initial contact.
Okay.
Smiles have been exchanged, maybe even a compliment thrown in there.
Right.
Now what? How do you keep that conversational ball rolling?
Oh, yeah, that's the hard part.
I know.
I feel like I'm always like fumbling.
I know. Like, have you ever had those moments where like the conversation just...
It just fizzles.
It fizzles.
Yeah.
Like, it's so awkward.
That's the worst.
So the book actually talks about the importance of active listening.
Active listening. Okay.
And it quotes Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, Ernest Hemingway.
Who says, and this is so true,
Okay.
most people never listen.
Mm.
I mean, isn't that the truth?
It is. Yeah, we're so busy thinking about what we're going to say next.
Yes.
We're not even really paying attention.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, but how do you actually become a better listener?
Yeah, is it just like nodding and saying, uh-huh?
I mean, that's a start, but
There's got to be more to it.
there's got to be more. Right.
Right.
So what does the book say?
Well, it says that active listening goes way deeper than that.
Deeper. Okay.
It's about being fully present in the conversation
Mm-hmm.
and paying attention not just to their words, but like their nonverbal cues too.
Oh, so like their body language and
Everything.
their facial expressions.
Everything.
Interesting.
And you know who Carl Rogers is?
Carl Rogers, remind me.
He's a psychologist, a really famous one.
Okay.
And he considered active listening to be like the core of any healthy relationship.
Wow.
It's about creating that safe space where the other person feels truly like seen and heard.
Seen and heard, yeah.
So it's less about like, trying to come up with the perfect witty response
Mm-hmm.
and more about like genuinely absorbing what they're saying.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And, there's this website called The Art of Charm.
The Art of Charm, okay.
They actually suggest aiming for 2-sentence answers in a conversation.
2 sentences.
2 sentences, yeah.
Not just like, yeah, it's great or something like that.
No, you've got to give them a little more to work with.
And I guess that keeps the conversation going.
Exactly. It encourages like a more dynamic back and forth.
Instead of those,
Conversation killers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, cool.
exactly. And they also say to always include a why in your answer.
Oh, why? Oh, that's interesting.
Because it gives the other person like more to latch onto. You know what I mean?
More conversational hooks.
Exactly.
I like that.
It encourages them to like elaborate and share more about themselves.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from like dominating the conversation.
Exactly.
So it's a subtle shift, but it can make a big difference.
Totally. It's like a little conversational ninja move.
I like it.
I know, right? So we've got the smiling down. We're making the first move, actively listening and keeping that conversation going. But are there any like secret weapons for really making a connection stick?
The book dives into this concept of common ground.
Okay.
Turns out we're like naturally drawn to people who reflect our own interests,
Yeah,
and beliefs.
totally. It's like that feeling when you meet someone who loves the same like obscure band as you.
Yes, exactly.
Instant connection.
Instant connection.
But is there like science behind that?
There is. There's this fascinating study. It's from the Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience Journal.
Okay.
And it showed how our brains actually react differently to the pain of friends versus strangers.
What?
Yeah. So like when we see a friend experiencing pain,
Yeah.
the areas of our brain associated with empathy actually light up.
Wow.
It's like we're feeling their pain too.
So it's not just about having things to talk about. It's like literally building a stronger neural connection.
Exactly.
That's wild.
It is. And the book gives a really practical tip for uncovering this common ground. Okay, so pay close attention to what sparks enthusiasm in other people's conversations.
Okay.
It's often a clue to their passions and values.
Ooh, so it's like a treasure hunt for Me Too moments.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about those times when you're really trying to build like a deeper bond with someone?
Well, the book gets into the importance of giving.
Giving.
Yeah, in relationships, but without expecting anything in return.
Okay, so it's not about keeping score.
Right. Like, I did this for you, so you owe me one. It challenges that whole tit-for-tat mentality.
Yeah.
That can sometimes creep into friendships.
Yeah, for sure.
The book argues that true enduring friendships require something more.
Okay.
And they actually cite research from Peter Daciolo and Robert Kurzban. And they did a study called The Alliance Hypothesis of Human Friendship.
Okay.
And their findings suggested that long-lasting friendships are built on a foundation of genuine care.
Okay.
And, a willingness to contribute to each other's well-being without any strings attached.
So it's about being genuinely invested in the other person's happiness.
Yes, precisely. And the book even uses this funny anecdote about a well-intentioned boyfriend who completely ruined a romantic evening because he was expecting something in return for all of his efforts.
Ouch. That's a classic example of what not to do.
Right. It highlights the danger of approaching giving with a transactional mindset.
Right.
It can create an imbalance in the relationship where one person feels obligated or resentful.
Totally. So how do you find that sweet spot between being generous but not getting taken advantage of?
Well, the book emphasizes setting boundaries and recognizing when giving comes from a place of neediness rather than genuine generosity. It's about making sure your giving enhances the relationship.
Right.
Without creating an unhealthy dynamic.
That's a really good point. It's like you can be generous without being a doormat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of giving without expectations. But what about the things we actually say to each other? Can words really make or break a relationship?
The book has a whole section on this, and it uses this powerful phrase, light and dark magic, arguing that our words have the power to build people up or tear them down. And that impact can be long-lasting.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've all experienced that, right? A careless word can sting for days.
Oh, totally.
While a kind word can completely turn your day around.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just tone of voice. The book actually cites research from Dr. James Pedebaker at the University of Texas. And he found that the language we use reflects our mental state and how we perceive others. So if we're constantly using negative language, it not only affects how others see us, but it also reinforces those negative thought patterns in ourselves.
That's a little scary.
It is.
Makes you really realize how much responsibility we have for the words we choose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book really encourages us to become more mindful of both what we say and how we say it.
Right.
It's about cultivating that awareness of the impact our words have on others and choosing to use language that builds people up rather than tears them down.
So it's about using our words as a force for good.
Yes, exactly. Almost like casting a spell of positivity.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But let's be honest, sometimes it's hard to be that positive, especially when you're feeling, insecure or lacking confidence. How do you project that kind of magnetic energy that draws people in when you're just not feeling your best?
The book tackles that head on, exploring the connection between charisma and confidence. And it defines charisma as this magnetic quality that, draws people in. But it emphasizes that true charisma is rooted in authenticity and confidence. So it's not about putting on a show or trying to be someone you're not. It's about embracing your true self.
So it's about owning who you are, flaws and all.
Exactly. And the book actually offers some really practical tips for cultivating both charisma and confidence.
Okay, like what?
It talks about the importance of, understanding your values, aligning your actions with your beliefs, and thinking independently.
So it's about having a strong sense of self.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it also highlights the importance of finding your passion. When you're genuinely enthusiastic about something, that energy is contagious.
Totally. Passion is definitely magnetic. But what about those times when you're feeling totally out of your element? The book mentions embracing discomfort.
Yeah.
But how do you do that when you're just plain scared?
Well, the book frames it as stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that growth and learning happen when we challenge ourselves.
Right.
And it's about remembering that everyone feels uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a normal part of the human experience.
So it's about facing those fears head on and realizing you're not alone.
Exactly. And the book also emphasizes the importance of emotional control.
Yeah.
It's not about suppressing your emotions, but about learning to respond to them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Rather than letting them control you.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. It's you can acknowledge your feelings without letting them completely derail you.
Precisely. It's about finding that balance between vulnerability and strength. And the book actually suggests that one of the best ways to cultivate this emotional intelligence is through mindfulness practices like, meditation or journaling.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. But what about the, more superficial stuff? Does the book address things like, appearance and how we present ourselves to the world?
It does touch on that,
Yeah.
suggesting that self-care plays a role in our confidence and how others perceive us.
Right.
And it references a 2019 study that actually linked poor hygiene to social rejection
Oh, wow.
and even health risks.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? If you don't feel good about yourself, it's going to show.
Totally. It's like taking care of yourself sends a message that you're worth taking care of.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that self-care isn't just about hygiene. It's about developing a style that, reflects your personality.
Okay.
Engaging in regular exercise that you enjoy, and making healthy food choices.
So it's about that holistic approach to well-being.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And all of these things contribute to that sense of inner confidence
Right.
that radiates outward
Right.
and draws people in.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from smiling and making the first move to active listening, finding common ground, giving without expectations, using our words wisely, and even taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
But is there, one overarching theme
Yeah.
that ties all of these things together?
The book really hammers home the point that trust is the absolute foundation
Okay.
of any strong relationship. And it uses this simple but powerful analogy. Trust is like a glass. Once it's broken, it can be incredibly difficult. It's not impossible to fully repair.
Yeah. Once that trust is broken, it's hard to let go of that feeling of betrayal.
It is. And the book actually shares an anecdote about white lies and like a work setting to illustrate how even seemingly small acts of dishonesty can erode trust over time. And it connects this to a 2016 study that found a lack of trust to be a major threat to the success of top companies.
Wow. So even those little white lies can have a ripple effect.
They do. They chip away at that foundation of trust. And once that foundation starts to crumble, the whole relationship can become unstable.
So how do you build trust? Is it just about being honest?
Well, honesty is definitely a key component.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. The book suggests being vulnerable and gradually sharing your thoughts and feelings, investing time, and shared experiences in the relationship, being consistent in your actions, avoiding emotionally harmful behavior, respecting confidences, and of course, being honest about your feelings, even when it's difficult.
So it's about showing up authentically and consistently.
Precisely. It's about creating that safe and consistent space where the other person feels seen, heard, and respected.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. But what about spending time together? Isn't that also important for building trust and connection?
It is, but the book makes a surprising point about prioritizing quality time over quantity in relationships. It references a 1999 study that found spending too much time together can negatively impact both romantic relationships and friendships.
Wait, seriously, too much time together can be a bad thing.
It can be if it leads to a loss of individuality or codependency. The book explains that it's important to allow space for individual growth and self-reflection.
Yeah.
When you're constantly together, it's easy to lose sight of your own needs and become overly reliant on the other person.
So it's about finding that healthy balance.
Exactly. Yeah. Between togetherness and independence. The book encourages us to embrace alone time as an opportunity for self-discovery and personal growth. It's about recognizing that spending time apart can actually strengthen the bond by allowing each person to bring their fullest, most authentic selves to the relationship.
That's a great perspective. I think a lot of people, myself included, could benefit from remembering that. But there's one more thing I'm curious about. The book mentions forgiveness as being a key ingredient in building strong relationships. But how do you forgive someone who's really hurt you?
That's a great question. And it leads us to the final and perhaps most powerful concept in the book, how to make people like you. Takes us deep into the heart of forgiveness with this incredible story of Immaculée Ilibagiza, a Rwandan woman who survived the genocide.
Wow, I've heard about her. She hid in a tiny bathroom with 7 other women for 91 days, right?
Yes. Could you imagine the terror and trauma of that experience? It's unimaginable. But what's even more remarkable is that Immaculée ultimately forgave the man responsible for the genocide that killed her family.
That's incredible. But how is that even possible to forgive someone who caused so much pain?
Well, the book explains that she came to understand that holding on to resentment and anger would only hurt her more than anyone else.
So forgiveness is more about self-healing
Yes,
than about condoning the other person's actions.
exactly. The book presents forgiveness as an act of self-compassion, a way to release yourself from the grip of anger and resentment and reclaim your inner peace.
Wow, it's like she chose to, break free from the chains of her past instead of letting them, define her future. That takes incredible strength.
It really does. And, it highlights something really crucial about forgiveness. It's not about saying that, what they did was okay or condoning it. It's about recognizing that holding on to anger and resentment, well, it ultimately harms us more than anyone else.
Yeah, there's that saying. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You're totally right. It's like self-sabotage.
Exactly. And the book makes it clear that, forgiveness, it's a process, not a
Yeah.
switch you can just flip on and off.
Right.
It takes time. And, it might require seeking support, like from a therapist
Sure.
or a counselor,
Yeah.
But the rewards are huge, emotionally and even physically.
It's pretty amazing. It's interesting how this deep dive started with the science of smiling and making those initial connections, but it's led us all the way to this profound concept of forgiveness.
Yeah.
It really shows how connected all of these aspects of, human connection are.
Well, it's all part of this larger, tapestry of building those meaningful relationships. And How to Make People Like You offers a ton of practical tips, strategies,
Yeah.
But it boils down to a few core principles:
Okay.
authenticity, generosity, empathy,
Yeah.
and a willingness to be vulnerable.
Those are powerful. And I think Immaculate's story, it embodies those qualities perfectly.
Yeah.
Even facing unimaginable suffering, she found the strength to forgive. And not just for, the other person, but for herself, too. It's incredibly inspiring.
It really is. And, it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit, it has this capacity for incredible compassion
Yeah.
and resilience.
Well said. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the, fascinating world of human connection, I'm curious, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What's that one nugget of wisdom that you're going to carry with you from How to Make People Like You?
For me, it's the reminder that building strong relationships, it's a lifelong journey, not a destination. It's about making those small, positive choices consistently. Like smiling at a stranger, offering a genuine compliment, actively listening, giving without expecting anything back, choosing words that uplift, taking care of ourselves, and even forgiving those who've hurt us. It's those little acts of kindness and connection that ultimately weave the fabric of a fulfilling and meaningful life.
That is beautifully said. And it's a powerful reminder that we all have the power to create positive change, not just in our own lives, but, in the lives of those around us. And who knows, maybe by simply putting a smile on someone's face today, we might just spark a chain reaction of kindness that spreads way beyond our immediate circle. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, remember, connection is key. And the power to create it, well, it lies within each of us.